Hello, everybody, and welcome back for the second segment of the July 9th Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
Two more races to bring you. Let's get started with the 7th race from July 3rd, a maiden special weight on the turf at 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. We're looking at a first-time starter here, the 3 Scary Guy.
Yeah, and Scary Guy will end up last early and end up last at the end, outside in the yellow. Scary Guy is a first-time starter for John Kimmel, who has a terrible record with first-time starters in turf sprints. However, having said that, he took a lot of money in this race. I mean, really bet strongly at 4-1. Surprised how much money. And considering that bad break and the big rush up down the backstretch, the money wasn't so wrong on a horse that ran last.
Now, obviously, he has some talent, can run a little bit here for sure. I mean, we've talked about this kind of move before on Trips and Traps, where horses that break slow, rush up, next time out, they're probably going to be a little bit better off because they've had so much go wrong early on in the race, and you kind of expect them to tail off a little bit like a Scary Guy did. I mean, he tailed off to last, was beaten 12 lengths in here, but still an effort where you have to say you got to give him a chance next time out. The couple things that I wasn't crazy about him was that he is a 3-year-old and he is a gelding already. I just don't know how much, how good he'll actually turn out to be, but off this effort, you have to give him another shot.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. One of the things that concerns me the most with Scary Guy was made this move up the lead, and he just tires at the end from those early efforts. I thought it was a very useful effort for a first-time starter who clearly showed he can run and took that money. The problem is we go to Saratoga. He's either going to run at 5.5 furlongs, because it's a 7-furlong race, or a mile and a 16th. Which one, if either, will he be particularly effective? Is he going to be effective at a 2-turn mile to mile and 16th? Will he be able to turn back to 5.5? I wonder where Kimmel puts him.
That's a very good question. I'd almost be more intrigued in him going longer, thinking, well, if he breaks okay, maybe he gets the kind of pace scenario where he could just be up on the lead. And if he could settle a lot of ifs, I mean, he is a horse that's only run once and certainly, didn't seem very professional in that start to go 2 turns. You kind of have to be able to relax and make sure, you could pass that test and be a little bit more polished than he was first time out.
Yeah, that's a valid point. He might be better off in a situation where he can be in a more controlling position. The winner of this race, Ad Infinitum, was a Bill Mott horse, hadn't run since Santa Anita, and was a completely different horse for Bill in this start, and a horse that could win at Saratoga in an allowance race. The favorite in here, Cafe des Artistes, that horse needs to go into maiden claiming races because that horse can't run anymore.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed in him. I mean, I think we featured him on Trips and Traps after his first race back in October at Aqueduct, and he ran well that day. And I thought he'd have a bit of a future in front of him. He went down to Gulfstream, finished off the board there, and then his last race, or his second to last race here at Belmont back on May 1st, wasn't very good either. And I think you're right; he definitely needs a drop in class.
Yeah, and the thing is that May 1st. You have to keep this in mind, and perhaps we'll have different weather situations in Saratoga. There are a lot of horses that may be compromised by how firm this turf course has gotten. But you know what? Cafe des Artistes ran May 1st at Belmont, and the course was very fair at that point early in the meet. So I'm not sure you can blame the course condition on his poor effort.
Okay, one more race to bring you, and we'll take a look at our second race on this segment. And this race is the third race from July 4th. We're going to look at Sterling Silver, who's been a favorite a bunch of times and is disappointed, and also the 5 Lucida.
Yeah, a Sterling Silver is compromised by dynamics right down the 2. Lucida is compromised by a ride, I think, in this situation. Now, Lucida has a special spot on Trips and Traps. She's a regular visitor, and we're getting a little tired of her, to be perfectly honest. Kenta Sormo, there's absolutely no pace in this race. They went 24. I don't see how strangling a horse back like this ever works in their benefit. When it happens, they never kick in when you ask them. She wants to go. They're crawling. Let her go. Now, Sterling Silver, it's not Ramon's fault. She's a dead closer, and it's a slow pace. It's a bunched field and a small field. These are the kind of races you talk about, the big fields, small fields. These are the kind of races you really get in trouble in. I don't think Ramon did anything wrong. I think she had trouble, but I'm a little bit tired of this horse, Sterling Silver.
Yeah, I agree. Last time out losing is the even money favorite. This time out going up to smoke at 2-5, and obviously there's some trouble here, but she has a decent enough trip up to this point, and she's going to get steadied and not steady, but just kind of have to wait toward the back of the pack and lose some position there. But still, I just don't see how she's really that good, and she's probably going to face some better horses down the road.
Right. The only thing you can say is, look, dynamics were badly against her here, and she still finished second. So you take away her price, and you could say, she still ran a pretty decent race, but she saved ground. And Ramon gets her in the clear before the 8th pole. Mm-hmm. It's not as though she's just gobbling up ground. Now, it was a slow pace, and they obviously quickened up later in the race, so it makes it much tougher to make a late run, and the winner got the first jump on her. So I wouldn't have a huge argument with somebody that said, well, she could have run the best race in here if she was badly compromised. The problem is she's a horse with no real speed. She's going to get to Saratoga. Unless she gets a lot more pace and the field gaps out, she's going to be a short price in her next start. And I'm just not convinced she's the kind of horse that wants to win.
Well, that's the key. I mean, she was 2-5 in this race here, so imagine all the people that were watching her anyway just because she was the favorite, and then for her to get in that kind of trouble. And you're right about the finish. I mean, yeah, maybe the pace was a little bit up against her for the finish, but she just has the looks to me of a horse that just kind of clunks up for minor pieces.
Yeah, and and getting back to Lucida, I know that there's a limit to how many times we can tell you we think a horse, or I think. I don't want to blame Erica. I don't want to dump Lucida in Eric's lap. It's more my thought. I still am not convinced from 7 to a mile in the right situation she couldn't win a race. And she's pretty dirtied up now. She goes to Saratoga and gets herself into a mile race. She gets a fair trip. Unlike Sterling Silver, she's going to be a much bigger price. So I could throw her in and try to get her in the number somewhere.
Yeah, she's interesting down the road, and certainly I think moving forward, some people are going to kind of forget about her because they're not going to read into it the way we think about it, where they'll see a horse that was sitting second behind a pretty comfortable pace and really quit in the stretch there. They're not going to like that type of effort.
Right. There are times that we'll convince ourselves to bet a horse 3 or 4 times in a row because we can't admit we're wrong, and we are wrong, and we just keep losing more money. And there are times when, and I've only bet Lucida in 1 or 2 of these races, where these horses do have legitimate trouble and are victim of circumstances, and you have to identify when, in fact, they have real trouble or when, in fact, you're trying to convince yourself you're not wrong. It's one of the problems of playing the game and the difficult things that makes it more interesting. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. We'll be doing one more Trips and Traps next week when we sit down here at Belmont. Trips and Traps at NYRAinc.com. Thanks for watching.